In 2019, Chicago Fire FC paid $65.5 million just to walk away from their own stadium. Not to sign a superstar, not to build something new, but simply to escape a disastrous lease and start over in a city that had already lost faith in them. That single decision tells you everything about how badly wrong this club had gone and how desperately they needed a permanent home. Now, after 25 years of political mistakes, failed stadium decisions, and empty seats inside a borrowed NFL ground, Chicago Fire FC are finally building one. A $750 million soccer-specific stadium rising beside the Chicago River, privately funded by a self-made billionaire who has already committed more than $1 billion to rebuilding this club from the ground up. But will this finally transform Chicago Fire into what they were always supposed to become? Or is this just another massive gamble in a long history of them? Let's get into it. Chicago Fire FC was founded in 1997, named after the Great Fire that burned this city to the ground in 1871. In their very first season, they won both the MLS Cup and the US Open Cup, the only team in American soccer history to ever do that in a debut year. They were supposed to become one of the most powerful clubs on the continent. Instead, they spent the next 25 years bouncing between wrong stadiums, losing fans, and slowly fading into the background of a city that deserved so much better. The biggest reason was never the players or the coaches. It was always the stadium. Soldier Field is a 62,500-seat venue built for NFL football in 1924 and completely wrong for soccer. On a typical Fire match day, 2/3 of it sits completely empty. The noise disappears before it reaches the pitch. The atmosphere dies before it even forms. That is not a passion problem. That is a building problem. The Bears hold a lease condition blocking any event within 5 days of their home games, meaning the Fire constantly lose their best summer weekends at short notice. In one recent season alone, 3 home games were moved to the suburbs. On top of that, the Bears hold exclusive sponsorship agreements that legally prevent the Fire from signing certain commercial deals of their own. A professional football club blocked from earning its own money inside its own home ground. What most people do not realize is that this whole situation started because of politics, not football. When the Fire tried to build their own stadium in 2006, they were pushed into Bridgeview, 12 miles outside Chicago, simply because it sat in the home district of powerful Mayor Richard M. Daley. Politics chose the location, not the club. Public transport was almost non-existent, the area never developed, and as results declined, fans stopped making the journey entirely. By 2019, attendance had collapsed to just 12,234, dead last in the entire MLS. The club paid $65.5 million just to break a lease previously described as ironclad, not a transfer fee, the price of a political mistake. They returned to Soldier Field in 2020 and slowly rebuilt. Then came April 2025, Lionel Messi, Inter Miami, and a franchise record, 62,358 fans packed inside Soldier Field. Chicago hosted World Cup matches in 1994 and carries one of the largest Latino communities in America. The demand is real, but none of it can be unlocked from inside the wrong building. Meanwhile, Nashville built Geodis Park, the largest soccer-specific stadium in North America, and sold out 30,000 seats from day one. Cincinnati built TQL Stadium and immediately became one of the loudest atmospheres in the league. Smaller grounds, full houses, electric atmospheres, everything Chicago did not have. Chicago Fire owned nothing at Soldier Field and fell further behind every single season. Then Joe Mansueto arrived, a self-made billionaire who built Morningstar from a tiny Chicago apartment. He did not buy this club for profit. He bought it because this city made him. Since 2019, he committed over $1 billion to rebuilding the Fire, including a $100 million training facility opened in 2025. But he knew everything meant nothing without fixing the foundation. 7 straight years without the playoffs, the longest active drought in MLS. For a club in one of America's biggest cities, enough was enough. In June 2025, Mansueto made the announcement Chicago had been waiting decades to hear: a brand new, privately funded, soccer-specific stadium. no public money, no political favors. But building it is one thing. What they are actually planning, and the battles still ahead, is where this story gets truly interesting. For the first time in club history, Chicago Fire FC will have a stadium built entirely for them, instead of borrowing, sharing, or settling for someone else's home. The stadium is being built at a site called the 78, a 62-acre plot of land in Chicago's South Loop, sitting right along the bank of the Chicago River. This land sat completely empty for decades, just a former railroad yard collecting dust in one of America's greatest cities. Now, it is about to become Chicago's 78th official neighborhood, and a $750 million soccer stadium is the anchor that makes the whole thing possible. Unlike the suburbs or Soldier Field, this stadium sits in the heart of Chicago, with major train lines and public transport just steps away. The location alone changes everything. The stadium will seat approximately 22,000 fans, and that number is completely deliberate. In 2025, the Fire averaged 23,420 fans per game at Soldier Field, which is already 92% of the new stadium's full capacity. From the very first match day, this place will feel full, loud, and alive in a way Soldier Field never could. The design was handed to Gensler, one of the world's most respected architecture firms. Built in Chicago school fashion, the facade is brick, steel, and glass, the exact same materials that define Chicago's industrial skyline and the warehouses that represent this city's grit and hard work. Inside, everything is engineered around one single obsession: atmosphere. Seats are placed lower and closer to the field than anything the Fire have had before. An exposed steel canopy over the seating bowl traps crowd noise and directs it straight back down onto the pitch. At Soldier Field, noise disappears into open sky. Here, it has nowhere to go but the game. And at the core of the stadium sits a dedicated supporter section, 2,000 fans on safe standing bleachers, purpose-built to be as loud as possible. Safe standing in American soccer is still rare. The Fire are not just allowing it, they are engineering the entire section around it. The premium experience is just as serious. The stadium features 50 suites, more than 500 loge seats, and 3,500 club seats. At Soldier Field, the Bears controlled every single dollar of that revenue. In their own building, every suite, every hospitality package, and every commercial deal belongs entirely to the Fire. And the naming rights deal announced on May 13, 2026 proves exactly how valuable that ownership is. McDonald's, one of the most recognized brands on the planet, signed a naming rights partnership with Chicago Fire FC that runs until at least 2040. It is the first time McDonald's has ever put its name on a major professional sports stadium in the United States. The ground will be called McDonald's Park, and it will feature a permanent flagship McDonald's restaurant inside the building. That kind of commercial partnership is simply impossible when you are a tenant in someone else's ground. But this project is something far bigger than football. The first phase of the 78 development includes more than 1,400 feet of publicly accessible riverfront space, a new water taxi stop, 1.5 miles of bike trails, and 3 acres of sports fields. The site allows for up to 10,000 residential units, with 20% committed to affordable housing. When the full 62-acre project is complete, it is estimated to generate $8 billion in economic impact for the city. This is not just a stadium, it is the spark that turns a derelict rail yard into a living, breathing neighborhood. On March 3, 2026, Joe Mansueto officially broke ground on Chicago Fire's new stadium beside the Chicago River. For the first time in club history, the Fire were finally building a permanent home built specifically for soccer. But while the ceremony was taking place, community leaders protested outside the site, warning that local residents were being ignored. And that tension quickly became one of the biggest challenges surrounding the entire project. The first controversy is funding. Mansueto insists the $750 million stadium is privately funded, and technically it is. But it sits inside the 78, a $7 billion redevelopment, where Chicago approved around $700 million in TIF funds for infrastructure, roads, and housing. Those upgrades are essential for the stadium to function. Community groups like the CBA 78 Coalition argue that public money meant for local residents could end up supporting a private development. The stadium itself may not cost taxpayers, but the wider project raises a more complicated debate. Transport is already becoming one of the project's biggest concerns. The original master plan included a brand new CTA Red Line station at 15th and Clark that would connect the stadium directly to the city, but the station was quietly removed during approvals. Right now, there are no major new train lines or major transit upgrades planned around the site. For a 22,000-seat stadium sitting near downtown Chicago, that could become a major problem once thousands of fans begin arriving on sold-out match days. What looks manageable on planning documents could feel very different once the stadium actually opens. Then there is the cost, and this is where the pressure really starts building. When Mansueto first announced the project in June 2025, the estimated price tag stood at $650 million. By the time groundbreaking arrived just 9 months later, that figure had already jumped to $750 million. $100 million added before construction had even properly begun. Stadium developments around the world are notorious for spiraling costs once work starts, and if this project follows the same pattern, the final bill could rise far beyond its current estimate. In MLS, where revenues still sit far below Europe's richest leagues, that kind of overrun becomes a very serious risk. The timeline creates another layer of pressure. Chicago Fire want the stadium ready by spring 2028, giving construction roughly 2 years to complete one of the most ambitious projects in MLS history. That is an extremely aggressive schedule in one of America's most politically and logistically complicated cities. The timing is not accidental. Chicago will host matches during the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and the club hopes to carry that surge of soccer excitement directly into the opening of the new stadium. But if major delays hit the project, that momentum could disappear before the doors even open. Still, none of this means the project is doomed. McDonald secured naming rights just weeks after groundbreaking, and MLS Commissioner Don Garber called it one of the league's most ambitious stadium projects. Mansueto has already invested heavily, including a $100 million training facility in 2025. The vision, investment, and ambition are all real. And for the first time in decades, Chicago Fire have a real chance to build a future that matches their city. So what do you think? Will this stadium finally transform Chicago Fire FC, or could the risk still derail the project? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more football stories.